I'm just gonna say it, Riverdale is one of the most chaotic shows of all time. There are bear attacks and milkshake speakeasies and organ harvesting cults and satanic tabletop games, and that's just in one season. It's time for us to unravel the madness that is Riverdale's timeline. Since all the show's baddies have hidden agendas and elaborate long cons, it should help to parse out their motives in real time. And yes, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina and Katie Keene are in the same universe, but we have to skip them this time because just trust us, there's enough ground to cover as it is. If you want to see those, shout them out in the comments and subscribe to Cinematica because there's a chance we'll revisit this universe someday. 1940s to 1990s. Our story begins not with any of the classic Archie gang, but with some dude named General Augustus Pickens. The history books say that he founded Riverdale in 1941, but that's not the whole truth. Barnabas B. Blossom actually paid him off to pillage the land already occupied by the Uktana people, and so Pickens slaughters hundreds of men, women, and children in mere minutes. After claiming the land, Pickens gets a statue in his honor while the Uktana people are pushed into the south side of town. Those who survive Pickens' massacre rally together and form the South Side Serpents to keep their people together. Meanwhile, Barnabas B. Blossom's family prospers. They open Blossom Maple Farms, monopolizing the illustrious syrup industry, multiplying their already substantial wealth. But the family's greed gets the better of them. One of the Blossom brothers tries to murder the other so that he can keep the family fortune, but the other kills him in self-defense. The living brother changes his last name to Cooper and splits from the rest of the Blossom clan, resulting in a feud between the families. In the 1970s, Jim Conway discovers the truth about the Cooper family and blackmails Lewis Cooper, Betty's future grandfather. Lewis does not want his family's sins coming to light though, so he murders Conway and his entire family to keep them quiet. Little does he realize that young Joseph Conway escapes and he changes his name to Joseph Svensson. The lesson is, if you mess up in Riverdale, just change your name and call it a day, I guess. Historical records, what's that? Lewis becomes known as the Riverdale Reaper, and the other townsfolk mob together to bring the Reaper to justice, but Svensson implicates the wrong man, so Lewis Cooper walks free. Around this time, the troubled patients at the Sisters of Quiet Mercy invent Griffins and Gargoyles. It's a fantasy game that helps them cope with delusions of an entity known as the Gargoyle King. The nuns catch on to the game and exploit it to control their patients, though the game is never meant to leave the group home. The Blossom family adopts a little girl named Penelope from the Sisters of Quiet Mercy. She's excited to have a new home, but soon finds out that the Blossoms are just grooming her into a child bride for young Clifford Blossom, and they only adopted her because of her red hair. But Clifford isn't even the true heir to Blossom Maple Farms. That's his identical twin brother, Claudius. When the brothers turn 14, Clifford warns Claudius of a family curse that sees one brother killing the other. Fearful for his life, Claudius leaves home and joins the Merchant Marines, while Clifford becomes the new heir. In the 1990s, Penelope makes an unlikely group of friends who you may know as all of the main characters' parents. Fred Andrews, F.P. Jones, Alice Smith, Hermione Gomez, and Sierra Samuels. They all find themselves in Riverdale High detention together, slowly opening up about all of their dreams and their traumas, almost kind of like a midnight club. So that's what they call themselves. In those detention days, Penelope introduces the squad to Griffins and Gargoyles, and they start sneaking into the school at night to play it. Eventually, they abandon the tabletop game entirely and go into full-on role-playing. On the eve of their big ascension party, the entire club meets to celebrate and gets high on Fizzle Rocks, a hallucinatory drug. Hiram Lodge, Tom Keller, Mary Mantle, and Daryl Doyley also show up, but no one can figure out who invited them to the party in the first place. Alice bails because she's pregnant with FP's baby and can't partake. While she's gone, Principal Featherbed comes back into the school and gets poisoned by Penelope. He's later found dead in a broom closet, his lips stained blue. To avoid suspicion, the Midnight Club disbands and they all go their separate ways. FP leaves his abusive novelist father and joins the Southside Serpents, while Alice begins to date Hal Cooper, the son of the Riverdale Reaper, Lewis Cooper. At the homecoming dance, Hal and Alice are announced king and queen, right before Alice reveals that she's pregnant with his baby. They have a big fight, so then she goes to stay at the Sisters of Quiet Mercy for several months. She then gives birth to her son, Charles Smith, and the nuns put him up for adoption. 2000s to 2017. Fast forward to 2001 and the rest of the Midnight Club have kids. At the age of 4, Alice and Hal's daughter Betty meets Fred's son Archie and they become best friends. In 2nd grade, Betty tutors Archie to ensure that they stay in the same class together. Archie is so grateful that he proposes to her, but she tells him to wait until they turn 18. Oh, and Betty also bludgeons the family cat Caramel to death with a rock, so maybe she's not such a good role model after all. Archie's other best friend is FP's son Jughead. Their dad's co-founded Andrews Construction together, but Fred is forced to fire FP when he falls into a life of crime. FP turns to booze to help him cope, which tears the Jones family apart. Around 2015, Archie's parents also split up and his mom, Molly Ringwald, moves to Chicago. Meanwhile, the Blossom family is as messed up as ever. Clifford Blossom has been using the Maple Farms as a cover to deal drugs. Penelope tells their children, twins Jason and Cheryl, ghost stories about the Sugar Man in order to protect them from Clifford's dangerous business life. When Jason gets older, he enters a relationship with Polly Cooper, Betty's sister. Their parents disapprove of it though, and they force the young Romeo and Juliet apart. That is, until Polly learns that she's pregnant with Jason's child. Between that and Clifford's drug dealing, the two decide to run away to a place called the Farm, but they need some extra cash for the trip, so Jason strikes up a drug delivery deal with the Southside Serpents. With that taken care of, he and Cheryl plan to fake his death. They go out on Sweetwater River and stage a boating accident so that Cheryl can report that he drowned. Of course, Jason actually swims across the river to safety, but when he makes it to the other side, the serpents abduct him. Clifford hired him because he was worried about his son spilling the truth of Blossom Maple Farms. So he shoots Jason in the head, and the serpents, including FP, plant the body back at Sweetwater River. Polly has no idea that any of this occurs. She's having some issues of her own. Hal knows that Polly and Jason are second cousins, so he tries to force her to have an abortion. The Coopers have her sent away to the Sisters of Quiet Mercy and lie to Betty about the reason. That same summer, Archie and Jughead have a falling out. Archie cancels their 4th of July road trip to spend time with Geraldine Grundy, his music teacher. They're having a super creepy and illegal affair. Alienated by his only true friend, Jughead starts to write a book about Riverdale and Jason's disappearance, and that's where the show starts. Weren't the classic Archie comics just about, like, being in high school and two girls having a crush on Archie and playing in a band sometimes, and also I hated Reggie and was the worst? Where did all this grimdark stuff come from? 2017 to 2018, sophomore year. At the end of this cruel summer, Hermione Lodge moves back to Riverdale with her daughter Veronica. Archie quickly falls for Veronica, sprinkling some sweet, sweet CW romantic tension between her and Betty, who is also in love with Archie. Ah, there's that love triangle finally. There's no clean way to cover all of the love triangles on this show, so let's just say that Archie and Veronica hook up, and so do Betty and Jughead, and sometimes they break up, but mostly they don't, and anyway, Jason's body turns up at Sweetwater River, gunshot and all, which launches an investigation into his murder. Archie fears that his secret relationship with Miss Grundy will be revealed, but when Alice Cooper, not that one, finds out, she blackmails Miss Grundy into leaving town. After some snooping and some dark role-playing, Betty learns that her sister and Jason were engaged, so she visits Polly at the Sisters of Quiet Mercy. She tells Polly what happened to Jason, so Polly flees the group home and stays with the Blossoms to dig up more clues. The evidence connects FP to the crime, so he gets arrested, but Betty and Jughead keep up their search. They find Jason's varsity jacket, which contains video evidence that it was Clifford who killed Jason. They report Clifford to the police, but by the time they arrive, he's dead. It looks like a suicide, but he was actually killed by Penelope after she learned that he killed Jason. Anyway, Cheryl is so overwhelmed with the recent ongoings in her family that she tries to drown herself, but Archie punches through ice and saves her. Then Cheryl burns her house down because the writers just won't give her a break. After Jason's death, the other Riverdale parents ignore Penelope. On top of that, she's still traumatized about her childhood grooming, so she teams up with Hal Cooper, who has those Riverdale Reaper genes, to take revenge against Riverdale. Their plan is to hunt those sinners who have allowed the shadows underneath the town to thrive. Hal dons a mask, becoming the Black Hood, and starts his reign by punishing Fred Andrews for his adultery. Under the guise of a robbery, he shoots Fred, but Archie is there to save him. Black Hood goes on to kill Geraldine Grundy for messing around with Archie, and he tries to kill Moose and Midge for doing Riverdale's hot new drug, Jingle Jangle. In response to these attacks, Archie founds the Red Circle, a vigilante group of jocks and other shirtless guys who call out Black Hood. Though Archie is forced to disband the group, he's still out to catch Black Hood, so he gets real chummy with Hiram Lodge, Veronica's mobster dad who just got out of jail. Hiram's come to Riverdale to buy up all the property on the south side and use the real estate to fuel his drug dealing operations. Yes, he's a drug dealer. Of course he's a drug dealer. Every big business in Riverdale is a front for a drug dealing operation, and that includes Southside High. And speaking of, since FP is still in prison, Jughead has been living with a foster family and attending Southside High School. He meets Tony Topaz, a serpent girl who helps him navigate the wonderful world of gang life. They have a brief fling while he and Betty are broken up, and then Tony moves on to Cheryl. Since Cheryl's mom is far and away the most evil character on the show, she sends Cheryl away to conversion therapy at the Sisters of Quiet Mercy. Like mother, like daughter, I guess. Tony and Veronica break her out, and then they all go off and perform Carrie the Musical. FP also gets out of jail and reclaims leadership of the serpents, so Betty celebrates with a really awkward pole dance. There's your serpent update, now let's get back to Hiram. He actually schemed to tear Southside High down and build Lodge Detention Center in its place. It's a privatized prison that also doubles as a drug lab to make fizzle rocks, but besides that though, Hiram is a totally cool dad. He invites Bughead and Archie to take a vacation to his lake house, the Lodge. There's this weird cross-couple fan service kiss, and then when burglars break in, one of Hiram's henchmen shows up to protect the kids. He kills one of the burglars, a man named Cassidy Bullock, and that becomes important later. Back in Black Hood world, Hal tries to recruit his daughter into his killer campaign by threatening her family. His family. From here, it's a cat and mouse game between the two as Betty tries to uncover his identity. Along the way, Robert Phillips, aka Sugarman, the Jingle Jangle dealer, Midge, and Joseph Svensson all go down. As if that's not enough drama for the Cooper family, Polly returns. She's been at the farm where she gave birth to her and Jason's twins, Juniper and Dagwood. But Polly is so indoctrinated by the farm that she doesn't want anything to do with her family. This inspires Betty to track down Charles Smith, Alice and FP's long-lost son. They find him, but it turns out that he's just an imposter who claims to have killed the real Charles. That's not true either though. The real Charles Smith is still alive and in a romantic relationship with Chick. But Betty doesn't know that, so she hands him over to the Black Hood to punish him for his alleged crime. Sensing a kinship with Chick, Black Hood Hal decides to spare his life. Betty notices her father's been suspiciously absent, so she suspects that he's the Black Hood finally. At last, Hal reveals his identity to her and Alice and attacks them, but Betty staves them off long enough for the police to arrive. Hal gets arrested, Jughead is appointed the new king of the Serpents, and Cheryl becomes part of the gang, and Hermione Lodge becomes the mayor of Riverdale. So everything is looking to be, I don't know, normal? Is this normal? Is this what being in a small town is like? Whatever, it's too bad that Hiram has Archie falsely arrested for the murder of Cassidy Bullock. He's trying to get back at Veronica for putting Archie before the family, so told you the fan service pool episode mattered. 2018 to 2019, junior year. When he's not conspiring with Chick, the real Charles Smith is an FBI agent. He's been busy building a case against cult leader Edgar Evernever and his cult called The Farm. You know, the place where Polly's been living. He's been hypnotizing his followers into seeing their dead loved ones and then harvesting their organs to sell on the black market. Agent Smith reaches out to his biological mom to help him infiltrate the farm from the inside, since Alice's daughter is already so deeply entwined in the cult she has an in. She joins Polly and the two of them levitate babies above a fire all the livelong day. Meanwhile, Archie's murder trial carries on throughout the summer, eventually resulting in a plea deal. He gets 2 years at the Leopold and Loeb Juvenile Detention Center, where Hiram makes his life a living hell. Yes, even in spite of the Jailhouse Rock scene. Under Hiram's direction, the warden gets Archie into an underground boxing fight club where the rich can bet on their fighters. With the help of his friends and the fashion-forward legal representative Veronica Posh, Archie escapes prison and Veronica proves his innocence. Also, Veronica owns a speakeasy now. It's too little too late for Archie though, so Archie and Jughead skip town. While Jughead's gone, the serpents start dealing fizzle rocks, spreading the epidemic. In other news, Betty has a new mystery on her hands. After Hal Cooper's arrest, Penelope made Chick into her new pawn. She dyed his hair red so that he'd be a proper Blossom, then dressed him up as the Gargoyle King from her Griffins and Gargoyles days. The two of them bring the board game back to Riverdale High, and the madness spreads like wildfire, just as it did in the 1990s. So after the deaths of Dilton Doily and Ben Button in what appears to be some sort of Gargoyle King related ritual, Betty is on the case. She learns about the Midnight Club from Alice and begins to suspect that one of their parents is responsible, both for Principal Featherhead's death in the past and the resurgence of the game in the present. She continues to dig, but the Gargoyle King arrives at her house and tells her to knock it off with a very strong message. Alice and Polly seek refuge at the farm for safety, but Betty isn't about that cult life, so Alice ships her to the Sisters of Quiet Mercy. Once she's there, she realizes that the nuns are testing Hiram's fizzle rocks on the patients, who are all hooked on Griffins and Gargoyles. She busts all the patients out and takes them home with her. But Hiram's fizzle rocks have been affecting more than just the patients. He's inadvertently been flooding the town's water supply with drugs from his factory, causing people from all over town to break out in seizures. Since Hermione is the mayor, he has her quarantine Riverdale until he can secretly fix the problem. During the quarantine, Archie holes up in a cabin and gets attacked by a bear, yes really, then heads back to town to stop Hiram. Betty's been trying to get the sisters to testify against Hiram too, but that plan falls apart when they all poison themselves with blue poison. Things sort of work out in the end though. Hermione hires FP to shoot Hiram and appoints him town sheriff. Hiram recovers, he and Archie bury the hatchet, and then they all go off and perform Heathers the Musical. But like, he's still making that Lodge Detention Center, so, well, during a prisoner transport to the center, a horrific crash allows Hal Cooper to escape. He dons the black hood once again and attacks Betty on prom night. She escapes, but finally decides to take Alice up on her invite to the farm. While there, Betty realizes that the farm has been drugging and stealing organs from its residents. That has nothing to do with Griffins and Gargoyles, it's just another crazy thing that's going on. We already mentioned it earlier. there. Betty's next in line to get her organs taken, but before she can get dissected, Penelope Blossom sweeps her away. She's got bigger plans for our core four. She invites Archie, Veronica, and Jughead to join Betty at a big evil dinner where she reveals all of her big evil plans to them. You know, revenge and the Black Hood and the Gargoyle King, just every mysterious ongoing since Jason's death. Then she challenges them to complete one final quest and win Griffins and Gargoyles. They have to survive a night in the woods, which includes fighting a man-bear, drinking poison, dueling the Gargoyle King, and finally, a confrontation with Black Hood. Betty refuses to kill her own father, so Penelope just does it for her. She's about to do the same to Archie and his friends until Cheryl and Tony arrive with the serpents and the pretty poisons to save them. Oh yeah, the pretty poisons are basically Tony's spin-off of the Southside Serpents. Penelope escapes the gangs and the kids live to fight another day. Both Hermione and Hiram are arrested for their many crimes, about time, and finally, maybe things can get back to normal. 2019 to 2020, senior year. On the 4th of July, 2 years since Jason's disappearance, Fred Andrews is tragically struck and killed after pushing a woman out of the way of a reckless driver. Archie meets the man responsible for the accident and forgives him. In celebration of Fred's life, Riverdale dedicates their Independence Day parade to him. Going into senior year, Archie's latest endeavor is to convert the El Royale gym into a community center for disadvantaged kids. Unfortunately, Dodger's been using the kids as minions. Jughead attends Stonewall Prep and reunites with his estranged grandfather, while Betty is still working with Agent Smith to take down the newly relocated farm. With help from the FBI, Betty and Alice kill Edgar Evernever and bus all of the farmies to safety. Springboarding off that success, Betty joins a junior FBI training program with Kevin, and while all of that is happening, Hermione and Hiram have been having their trials. Veronica's sister, Shermosa, comes to town and gets Hiram exonerated for all of his crimes again. Then he runs for mayor of Riverdale, secures the vote, and opens a rum business, because of course he does. Flash forward to spring break. Veronica and Archie find Betty bloodied rock in hand with Jughead's bludgeoned body on the ground in front of her. The three of them burned all of their clothes, including Jughead's iconic crown beanie, and vow to never speak of the night's events. A search party finds Jughead's body, and Archie, Veronica, and Betty all get arrested for his murder. But we still have no idea what transpired that night, so looks like we haven't solved all the mysteries of Riverdale just yet. Leave your predictions in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe to Cinematica. I've been Jacob, and thanks for watching.